Yo, what's up, baby? It's your boy Young Spider, and we back for a special edition of the Checkdown Championship Edition, starring me, the champion. Ha. And I'm gonna show you guys how I got to this level, right? How did we get to this level? I guess you have to check it out. It's the Checkdown. Welcome back, people. Welcome back. So this show is a little different, as you can see. It's Championship Edition. What we're going to highlight is what do you need to do in order to become a champion at fantasy football? What moves you need to make? How do you sit on players? When do you drop players, etc.? This will cover everything. I'm talking quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, special teams. First, we're going to start with the quarterback position, so you guys can understand why I chose the quarterbacks I chose and why they were in my lineup every week. You notice weeks where Jacoby Brissett, you feel me, is in the lineup, not because he's flashy, but because he's, valuable. He produces, because he's giving me safe yardage, a clear upside, when none of my other quarterbacks that were available were doing anything, like Kyler Murray. I mean, he fell off the map after week 2 or 3, it was terrible. When I picked up Joe Burrow and he was available, I plugged him in, but only according to matchup. The quarterback is about floor management, not ego. That's first and foremost, you know what I'm saying? You don't win championships by forcing the popular player, you know what I'm saying? No. You don't need you don't need stars. What you need is productivity. Okay, now let's talk about the running back strategy, right? Because this is very important. The running back position was the backbone of my team, essentially. At the end of the day, I thought it was weak, but the players that I picked up eventually over time, because I was persistent and I didn't give up on my players, over time they developed and started doing exactly what I expected them to do. Sometimes it doesn't pan out that way. Sometimes you overthink it. This year, I didn't overthink it. I did it right on time. You feel me? You'll see like players like Chase Brown consistently in my lineup. And it wasn't because of some preseason performance that he had or anything like that. It's because, I knew that, they got rid of Joe Mixon. Why? Because they had Chase Brown. So they're going to use him. I knew that coming into the season. So he was one of my number one top running back picks of their entire season. Remember this, all right? Touches beat out popularity every time, you feel me? The amount of touches you get out beat out the big names every time, week to week in fantasy football. I'm just saying. At receiver, this lineup was kind of static, Pickens, Higgins, Rice, Evans, Addison. They're all solid, but, these weren't locked in starters every week, right? You're not going to go into it and feel like you're going to lock these starters in every week, but they still are solid plays, I feel, because of productivity. You see what I'm saying? Some weeks, Pickens was the focal points of Dallas offense. Some weeks he just was not, and he was more of a decoy, but he did get his targets. That's what I'm saying. He got targets, or he got opportunities. That's what it's about. It's not about what they do with their opportunities, because some of those opportunities can turn to golden opportunities. You got to think about that. And you need people to score. These wide receivers I had, Pickens, Higgins, Rice, Evans, these guys are tools, what I'm saying? Like, they're more like tools rather than, focal lock-in situations. They're like the perfect week to week. What are my matchups? What am I going to plug in? What wide receivers I'm going to plug in? I didn't have to overthink any of these players. I knew they were going to give me something. You feel me? I let whatever happened was happening week to week dictate the way I would line up my players. Next, let's visit the tight end position. The tight end position this year last year was insane, right? You didn't want to be stuck in the streaming a tight end situation, and I know for sure that I wasn't going to get stuck in the streaming tight end situation. So I got the best tight end I felt was available at the time, and that was Trey McBride. Thank God I was correct. I felt like Kyler Murray and him, it was their year. I feel like they were going to connect on a whole nother level, but Kyler Murray came into the season playing like straight garbage, straight garbage. And because of that, I was kind of reluctant at first, right? But after week 2, I was like, yeah, my man locked in. I'm going to lock him in. Just, again, based off his production, the routes he was running, the way, how many times Kyler Murray looked his way, how many targets he got, etc. That sold me, man. And then every week I realized as we got into week 4 or 5, man, I made the right choice because there's not a lot of tight ends out there. Let's talk about defense and the special teams, kicking, kickers, all that type of stuff, right? Now with this, people overlook this a lot, right? The kickers and the defense. Now me, I've been doing this for a while, and people, some people are skeptical about it, right? They look at defenses like last year and they be like, oh man, the top defense this year is going to be X. And they get that defense and they keep them on their team, and throughout the season, it shows that defense, falters a little bit because people fear you. Either the bad defense becomes a good defense, or the all right defense become a bad or good defense. I'm not going for all right. I don't go for mediocre. I go for the best available kicker and defense, depending on the matchup. I treat it like they're real, like I'm a real, owner of a team. And if they mess up, you get replaced. If you don't give me a certain amount of points as a kicker, goodbye next week. I don't even think about it. Goodbye. See you later. Defense. If defense ain't performing, it's not giving me enough points every week, week to week, even when I match up right and I feel like I'm matching up, no sir. Goodbye. Normally this works because it's about matchups, kicking. Like how many teams are going to be down, which teams are going to be desperate and kick field goals, and that's where I go with, like Jacksonville Jaguars, Cam Little. Like I feel like that was a steal. I saw this dude kick a record-breaking field goal the next day. Literally the next day, I put a waiver wire request in for Buddy, and I'm not gonna question it. Like kickers like Brandon Aubrey, I'm gonna lock him in every week. Dallas Cowboys they fluctuate all the time. It's like you don't know what you're gonna get, what they're gonna do, but you do know they're gonna get close to the end zone. And if they get close enough to the end zone, you got people like Brandon Aubrey and Cam Little. That's an opportunity for you to score points. All right, let's talk about the bench and the injured reserve section, right? Now, the bench and the injured reserve this year was crazy for me. It started off rocky, man. I got lucky, to say the least, man. But at the same time, my bench was not random, right? There's more like insurance claims. To be honest with you, everybody on my bench had a role, and they played a role. It wasn't a graveyard for me. You feel me? It's more like a gold mine for me because when people went down, these people stepped up. Some of these players that I had on injured reserve, Judkins and Rashid Rice, I just stashed them. I stashed them until they came back, and I used them. And when they came back at the right time with a vengeance. I never dropped value because it wasn't available that week. I never panicked. I never said, oh, man, I need to change this out because I need room on my bench. I need this injured reserve person gone. No, I locked in the injured reserve spot all year. That's what you need to use that for. Don't use it for in case someone get hurt. Grab someone who's coming back. Think ahead. You got to think ahead. This is chess, not checkers. You feel me? When things get rough, you need to do something that all humans know how to do, and that's adapt. Adaptation. Week by week adaptation, right? Week by week adaptation is the ability to change things up, but leave them similar to the way they were before you had to change them up. Does that make sense? Let me explain. So if you look at week 11 through 17 for me, right? During those weeks, you'll notice something very important, right? The roster changes, right? But the principle stays the same, bro. I adjusted my lineup based off of health, usage, productivity, opponent strength, and game script. I didn't chase my projections, right? I chased the probabilities. Let's talk about the most important thing, the reason why you're probably watching this video right now, and that's the championship game. The championship game is the most important game of the season, right? You don't want to try to get cute. You don't want to try to get creative and stuff that you were doing, week 7, week 8. You know what I mean? You want to get straight to the point, straight to the nitty. You want to plug in the people that you can depend on, the people that have proven themselves throughout the season, because that's what you have to put your chips on. You really have to bet on the numbers, the probability, what happens, the completions, the ratio, completion to drop, all that. You want to make sure you avoid any mistakes that you could possibly make, right? Those mistakes where you triple guess or double guess, or right before the game you switch it up, those type of things, right? You want to just set your lineup early, right? Pay attention to news, injury news, just in case during the week a player gets injured. But that's the only thing you want to do, right? You don't want to look at these shows and let these shows get in your head and mess you up and make you play like on a desperate angle, because people can get in your head, believe it or not. You hear advice from 3 different places, you start to think about your first decision. Maybe your first decision wasn't the best decision. Then you change your decision, and then you should have stayed with that first decision, So, I basically played with the players I trust. That's what I went with, man. And as the result, you see, when the final score came in, it reflected consistency, not gambling. Winning isn't about being right once. It's about making fewer wrong decisions over time. Championships don't come from nowhere, right? It's a story behind it. So since 2013, I've been playing fantasy football, right? My all-time record is 198 wins and 174 losses. That's over 370 games played, bro, in fantasy football. So we must assume that you don't accidentally win that many matchups over that long of a time, right? Like without knowing what you're doing, right? My career win rate is over 50%. It's 53.2%, bro. And not that it sounds like it's flashy or something, bro, but it, at the same time, it's very impressive because it's difficult to do, right? And, in a head-to-head fantasy, anything above 50% means that you're pretty much, not just beating randomness, it's consistency. Like that's the word for the day, people, consistency. Right? Be consistent in what you do and you won't have any problems, right? I've won 7 trophies. 4 of them first place trophies, bro. So 4 out of 7, 4 out of 7 is 4 and then 3 losses, for first place. Not to say I didn't get second place, because those third places that I lost are automatic trophies anyway. I've managed 23 different teams across leagues. I've seen every format, every draft position, right? Every type of collapse and comeback. I've seen it, witnessed it. I've won a championship before by 0.2 points before. That's experience, and that experience, it matters. That legacy of those wins versus losses, those matter. Those aren't just rinky-dink numbers, right? I've reached gold level 7 times. You know what I'm saying? Not once, not twice, 7. So humbly, if if you're watching this and you see this championship, don't look at it as, the peak. Look at it as a checkpoint. Just look at the score. Look at it. This wasn't comfort. This was control. This is where preparation shows up. Not when it's easy, but when it's tight. Short, clean, and heavy. So let's talk about something else, right? Last and final segment of my show today to close it out. First and foremost, I won this league clearly, as you guys can see, as the evidence proves. But I was not paid, and I was not given my prizes or my winnings, anything associated with this league. And I'm going to use the opportunity now to not only teach you guys, how to avoid being in leagues like this where, you do all the grunt work, you do all the groundwork to become successful and win a trophy and the prize money just to have it stripped away about someone who doesn't have any integrity whatsoever. So I'm going to break down right now the things that you need to do to make yourself safe and avoid people like this. First, you got to follow me on my journey. All right. So this screenshot right here is a commissioner's note that is issued before the season. It clearly states, right? Entry fee in contractual terms. Entry fee, $100. No payment equals no team. Payments are collected up front. This establishes that the league operated as a paid competition, not a casual league, right? Prizes. This is a key part, right? The commissioner explicitly promised for first place $800, a championship ring, and merchandise, right? But there's no ambiguity here. No subject to change, no conditional language, no later amendment shown. This is a written prize structure. I want to take a moment here, right? Not to celebrate, but to educate. Because winning in a league is one thing, right? But making sure a league is run right, that's something completely different, right? The season was played, the games were decided, and I won. But the prizes were not delivered. I want to be very clear here, right? This isn't about trashing anyone. This isn't about protecting players, right? Because if you play in paid leagues, you need to understand something. Your league is only as honest as its structure. If you join the league in the future, because I'm going to remember this, because there's a lot of snakes and pathetic people in the world who want to take from you and steal from you because they're taken from, essentially they're taking and robbing from the entire league to then keep the money for themselves to do whatever they need to do with it. It really doesn't matter because, doesn't matter at all because it's not your money if you didn't win it, right? It's a competition. And at the end of the competition, if you can't even trust yourself to give people the winnings that deserve it, then it's bad. You want to see written prize rules. Now, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, because it didn't work for me this time. You would think because they put it out on wax, right, for everyone to see that they will honor it, because as a man, you're supposed to honor most men. Some men ain't really men, but they think they are. But you gotta. It's a list of things, right, that you put down to display for people to see and for them to follow. And if you don't do that, if you do that, you don't respectfully follow those rules yourself, and you're the one who puts down those ground rules. So the only thing you can really do, something like this, if you get in this situation again, or to prevent this situation, is you want to get in a league, right, with a commissioner who has a commissioner, also has someone who holds the money, like someone else is independent from the whole group, right? They hold the money. You got to orchestrate it and set it up. Because some people don't have integrity. You can't really trust people. And if you go into a game where you can win money, as you can see, people will run off with the bag, bro. If they can, by any means necessary. Especially if they feel butthurt that they lost and got destroyed twice. I won in my play. I didn't have to cheat. I didn't have to do anything of that nature, That doesn't mean every commissioner is bad. Every commissioner isn't bad. But it does mean that you're depending on someone else. You're trusted in someone else with your money and with their integrity to pay out. So make sure it's someone that you can trust. Sometimes you can't trust anybody, especially your family. It's a story of Cain and Abel, of, brothers stabbing another brother in the back and murdering them, and getting joy out of it, apparently. And that's the world we live in now. You can't trust anybody, not even your own family, because your family will just, put you on the ground and take a big old deuce on you. There's a difference between playing in a league and owning a league. And if money is involved, that difference matters. Well, there you have it. The 2025-2026 NFL fantasy football season is done. And your boy is the champion. it was a great run. I had a lot of fun playing against these guys. It took, preparation, strategy to win every matchup. So I really appreciate the competition. But there can only be one winner. That's me, your boy. Special shout out to everybody who watched the show every week. I really appreciate it. The numbers went up. And next season is going to be a good one, right? Because I'm a repeat champion, right? I'm going to be repeating again for the championship. I'm glad you guys watched. Please subscribe and tell your friend to tell a friend, man. It's a check down. Have you checked it out?